Good morning, friends. Good morning. Sorry, I was just a touch late. Got a phone call just before I was ready to hit start here. So just kind of had to take care of that. But anyway, good morning and welcome to another episode of PB Reads the Bible. And this is episode 22 on our journey through the book of 1 Samuel. So today we will be looking at chapter 23 of 1 Samuel, continuing our story, our look at David and Saul and what's taking place between the two of them. when we met yesterday, we saw David on the move, David fleeing, and Saul's ridiculously insane actions and Doeg the Edomite and all that stuff. So we're going to pick up from there today. But anyway, I should restart and say what this is. Yeah, I did. I said it's PB Reads the Bible. What's that mean? I'm PB. I'm Pastor Brian, and we gather together each day to read a little bit of the Bible and to take a look at it and see what it means and what it doesn't mean at the same time, to understand the context and to see what we can get out of it. And so ours is a small group that, not because it's small in number, but because that means we have a connection to each other. We're gathering as a small group, regardless of our size, and sharing life together. So go ahead and check in, say hello, good morning, all that kind of stuff. Good morning, Marcia. Good to have you with us this morning. Also put on your joys, concerns, that kind of thing that you want us to be in prayer about for you. I feel comfortable and safe in saying this. Cindy has been pretty open, and she posted yesterday that John has an appointment with the cardiologist yesterday. They had that appointment, and now John is scheduled to have a procedure done tomorrow. So prayers for John and Cindy and for John's medical team as they go through that. And we do pray that that will take care of his issues, his concerns, or at least some of them, if not all of them. And so that's it for that. And I'm seeing a number, but I'm only seeing one person checked in so far, and that's okay. You can always do that stuff, or questions or joys and stuff via texting 570-351-1619. But yes, comments and questions can also be placed in the YouTube stream or the Facebook stream, and we'll address those. And if I don't get to them right away, it just means I didn't see them for some reason. Sometimes Facebook shows me stuff, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just tells me you checked in, and other times it doesn't. So if that's the case, I'll get back to you. I will get to you as soon as I can. And if it's a question or comment that I think everyone would benefit from, then I will probably address it the following day, or the following session, or an upcoming session. I do know that some of you aren't able to join live, but you still find time to watch these and to join together. So just in the same way that we're able to connect across miles, we can also connect across time. Through some of these technological wonders and miracles. So go ahead and check in, even if you're not live, not watching this on Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock. And also leave your comments and stuff, because I do go back in and I look and see if there's anything there that I need to address, any housekeeping kind of thing to take care of. Otherwise, we're going to get started here so we can continue our days. We'll be looking at chapter 23 today. Today is Tuesday, today is Wednesday. The holidays really threw me off. Today is Wednesday all day long. So we've got today and we've got tomorrow. And we'll be live again tomorrow. But so let's get to today, shall we? Chapter 23. Now they told David, the Philistines are fighting against Keilah and are robbing the threshing floors. David inquired of the Lord, of Yahweh, shall I go and attack these Philistines? Yahweh said to David, go and attack the Philistines and save Keilah. Pause. So David finds out that whoever they are, David finds out that the Philistines are attacking a particular group of people from Israel, a particular clan, not a full tribe, just a clan, people of this one community. David and robbing the threshing floors. What does that mean? That means it's been like harvest season, harvest time, and they brought stuff in and they're threshing, finding the grain, getting rid of the chaff and all that stuff, and they're robbing the threshing floors. So the Philistines are taking the food of the people of Keilah, their livelihood and their food, stuff that's going to keep them alive. David doesn't go straight to action. David talks first with Yahweh. He speaks first with God to find out what should I do? What should I do? Should I go? Should I go? And the author doesn't make a big deal out of it, which I think is a big deal. It's pointing out this is almost like a regular pattern for David, that he's in touch with God. He's in contact with God. We're not told specifically how this is occurring. Is he using an ephod and the Urim and Thummim kind of thing, casting lots, or what? Or is he just praying? We're going to see something in a little bit where he uses an ephod, but it's not mentioned here, but we can almost presume that he is doing this official. But God tells him, go and attack the Philistines and save Keilah. But David's men said to him, look, we are afraid here in Judah. How much more then if we go to Keilah against the armies of the Philistines? Pause. Keilah is very close to the borders with Philistia. So it's not like a small raiding party they potentially are going against. The entire Philistine army isn't very far away. So they're understandably concerned. Then David inquired of Yahweh again. Perhaps he did this in front of them. We don't know. Yahweh answered him, yes, go down to Keilah, for I will give the Philistines into your hand. Pause. So this message from God isn't just, yes, go and fight for the people of Keilah. This is, you will be victorious, for I will be with you and hand over the Philistines to you. So perhaps David is encouraged, but more specifically his men seems to be encouraged, because it continues, verse 5. So David and his men went to Keilah, fought with the Philistines, brought away their livestock, and dealt them a heavy defeat. Thus David rescued the inhabitants of Keilah. Pause. So happens. They go, they fight, they have booty, they collect the livestock of the Philistines. That's how they provided for your army, was take foods with you just in case you couldn't get it. So they had livestock with them, and David and his men confiscated all, they capture it in the battle or in the result of the aftermath of the battle. Now, what is it about Keilah? Is Keilah important? It's really not an important community. It's not a full tribe. It's not something major. So there's not really any political import for David going and doing this. What we can see here in David's willingness to go is his genuine concern for the people, not for his appearance, not for garnering support. And we're going to find out, because if that was what he was doing it for, it didn't happen. We're going to find that out very quickly. He did it merely to help the people, Continuing, when Abiathar, son of Ahimelech, fled to David at Keilah, he came down with an ephod in his hand. Now it was told Saul that David had come to Keilah. And Saul said, God has given him into my hand, for he has shut himself in by entering a town that has gates and bars. Saul summoned all the people to war to go down to Keilah to besiege David and his men. When David learned that Saul was plotting evil against him, he said to the priest Abiathar, bring the ephod here. David said, O Yahweh, the God of Israel, your servant has heard that Saul seeks to come to Keilah to destroy the city on my account. And now will Saul come down as your servant has heard? O Yahweh, the God of Israel, I beseech you, tell your servant. Yahweh said, he will come down. Then David said, will the men of Keilah surrender me and my men into the hand of Saul? Yahweh said, they will surrender you. Then David and his men, who were about 600, set out and left Keilah. They wandered wherever they could go. When Saul was told that David had escaped from Keilah, he gave up the expedition. David remained in the strongholds in the wilderness, in the hill country of the wilderness of Ziph. Saul sought him every day, but Yahweh did not give him into his hand. Pause. So Saul mistakenly thinks that David made a mistake by going to Keilah because it has gates and bars. He thinks he's got him trapped. He's not remembering his history very well. As Samson, the Philistines thought they had Samson similarly trapped, and he got away. So Saul doesn't seem to remember these things very well. No, so David saved the people of Keilah, but when Saul finds out that David's there, and we're not told how, but almost presumably by one of the people who lived there. And when David asks God, will they turn me over? And God says, yes, they will. So if he had saved Keilah for political reasons and politically important to gain support from them, that didn't happen. The people weren't interested in that. They very quickly turned their backs on David in spite of the fact that he had just saved them from the Philistines. All right. But David and his men very quickly abandon, leave the city when they went after speaking with God. Notice a couple things about that passage with David speaking with God. He uses a particular expression multiple times: your servant, your servant, your servant, your servant. Did you catch that? He said, your servant. He refers him to himself as your servant in speaking with God. But Yahweh did not give him into his hand. He did not turn David over to Saul. So we're going to hear some things out of Saul's mouth that sound very ironic, because we know what's really going on, and Saul doesn't. And again, Saul is like completely out. Completely out of it. Okay, continuing. Verse 15, there's something in this verse that one of the commentators says both the NIV and the NRSV get wrong, so we'll get there. David was in the wilderness of Ziph at Horesh when he learned that Saul had come out to seek his life. Pause. Although I guess technically it can be learned that or saw that as technically correct, it doesn't make sense to translate it that way. The better translation would actually be afraid. Be afraid. We should read here that David is afraid. And I'm going to reread it saying that, and then read farther, and it'll make more sense. David was in the wilderness of Ziph at Horesh, and he was afraid because Saul had come out to seek his life. Saul's son Jonathan set out and came to David at Horesh. There he strengthened his hand through Yahweh. He said to him, do not be afraid, for the hand of my father Saul shall not find you. You shall be king over Israel, and I shall be second to you. My father Saul also knows that this is so. Then the two of them made a covenant before Yahweh. David remained at Horesh, and Jonathan went home. Pause. So see, by saying, by translating it as afraid, that it makes more sense, because Jonathan comes to encourage him, and the first things he says is, what? Do not be afraid. It makes a whole lot more sense than saying that David sees that or learns that. He already knew that Saul was after him and was trying to kill him. So to say that again doesn't make sense, but saying that he was afraid about it makes a lot more sense. Makes him human, of course, too. And then it makes sense when it says that Jonathan told him, do not be afraid, and encouraged him and strengthened him. So we're not told how Jonathan finds out, but somehow Jonathan found out where David is and goes there to him and does that. And Jonathan sounds like a messenger from God. Anytime we have a messenger from God, they start out with those same words as well, don't they? Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. So Jonathan is using those regular words, a regular message from a messenger from God. Do not be afraid. And then he goes on to tell him why. And Jonathan is tells David, hey, I know you're going to be king. What else does he say? My father knows it too. Saul is the only one so far who hasn't publicly stated or admitted that. We're told now that by Jonathan that Saul knows, but Saul has never said that I know. He's not ready to acknowledge it. He refuses to acknowledge it. In his insanity, he can't acknowledge it, whatever the case. But Jonathan does. And here we have Jonathan and David meeting actually for the last time. They don't know it, of course, at the time, but they are meeting for the last time. So continuing from there, verse 19. Then some Ziphites went up to Saul at Gibeah and said, David is hiding among us in the strongholds of Horesh, on the hill of Hachelah, which is south of Jeshimon. Now, O king, whenever you wish to come down, do so, and our part will be to surrender him into the king's hand. Pause. So some Ziphites, not all the people of Ziph, but some of them want to turn David over to Saul. They go and they tell Saul, hey, we know where he is. You come down, we'll turn him over to you. You come down, we'll turn him over to you. Saul said, may you be blessed by Yahweh for showing me compassion. Pause. How ironic is that, right? And there's an echo in here to Saul when he showed compassion on a king of, again, I don't remember his name, in that one battle where God told him to kill everybody, and he showed compassion on the king. And here he's telling them, oh, God, may God bless you for showing compassion on me. So irony there, added irony is the fact that at the same time, he wants to kill David. So he wants to not be compassionate, but he's thanking them for being compassionate. Wow. And he thinks that God will bless them for this. So continuing, go and make sure once more. Find out exactly where he is and who has seen him there, for I am told that he is very cunning. Look around and learn all the hiding places where he lurks, and come back to me with sure information. Then I will go with you, and if he is in the land, I will search him out among all the thousands of Judah. So they set out and went to Ziph ahead of Saul. So pause. So they went back to Ziph, and they're going to search for David. Saul is on his way, presumably with his army, or at least some of his army, to get David. David and his men were in the wilderness of Maon in the Arabah to the south of Jeshimon. Saul and his men went to search for him. When David was told, he went down to the rock and stayed in the wilderness of Maon. When Saul heard that, he pursued David into the wilderness of Maon. Saul went on one side of the mountain, and David and his men on the other side of the mountain. David was hurrying to get away from Saul, while Saul and his men were closing in on David and his men to capture them. Then a messenger came to Saul saying, hurry and come, for the Philistines have made a raid on the land. So Saul stopped pursuing David and went against the Philistines. Therefore, that place was called the Rock of Escape. David then went up from there and lived in the strongholds of En-Gedi. Pause, end of chapter. So Saul thinks that God has turned David over to him. He hasn't. He thinks he's got it made. He thinks he's going to capture him or kill him. He doesn't. He gets close though, right? We're seeing close calls for David in his escapes, but he continues to escape. And this time it's because Saul gets this message that the Philistines are attacking. They have made a raid, and apparently Saul is sane enough to realize that he does have to attend to this matter first, and he leaves. And it's the rock of escape, or in other translations, it might say the rock of parting is the name of this place. David and his men go to En-gedi. Where is En-gedi? En-gedi is by the Dead Sea. I think it's the Dead Sea, and it's cliffs and caves, and so that's where he's going to be going. Yes, by the Dead Sea. So we'll find out what happens from there. Right, we're going to find out what happens from there. And it was sort of a short one today. Maybe I could have read 2 chapters, but no, we'll get to the next chapter tomorrow. We will get to the next chapter tomorrow. So, my friends, I do pray that this has been beneficial to you. Thank you for being here with me in this fashion. I pray it's been beneficial use of your time, that God has spoken to you in some way, that you've learned something or relearned something. As you go about your days, not just today, but every day, keep those eyes and ears, both physical and spiritual, open to everything our living, loving act of God is doing in your life and in the lives of those around you. When you see it, when you hear it, say, thank you, Papa, and then tell somebody about it. Until we meet again, my friends, be blessed. Be blessed. Bye.